Hey guys, and welcome to a new video here on Phloshop. My name is Joseph. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I got this image. I posted it on my Instagram and a lot of people seemed quite interested because I asked if they wanted to see how I retouched this image. If you haven't seen how I shot this also, it's on my YouTube. I'm going to put a link in the card right now. You can check it out before you watch this retouching video. Again, I'm going to show you how the image started off, and I'm also going to do a little comparison between Capture One and Bridge, just so you see the difference in quality and the reason why I sometimes prefer to use Capture One over Camera Raw. This is the image straight out of camera. I know the color is just bad, especially in Capture One and everything, and after tweaking the colors, this is where I was able to move it to, and from here I took it into Photoshop. I did a skin retouching. I didn't really touch the coloring as much, and then I also did a lot of cropping inside of Photoshop, and then I brought it back into Capture One looking like this. So I'm just gonna work on this particular image, and I've already made a variant, so it's the exact same thing. But if I open Bridge briefly, it's the same image right here in Capture One. So I'm just gonna minimize this a little bit. So looking at the colors already, even looking at the red of the turtleneck that she's wearing inside Bridge, which is the one on the left, it looks a little bit more orange, and that wasn't the color I was seeing on set that day. And the same thing with the one inside Capture One. I feel this is also a little bit too saturated, so we're gonna fix all those problems, and then we're gonna move it again. This is the one I've already done, so we're gonna move it from this to this inside Capture One, take it into Photoshop, and then finalize it looking something like this. So first off, I'm going to maximize Capture One because we don't need Bridge anymore, and this again is what we're going to be working with. So I'm going to click on the variant, and that's what we're going to start off with. So inside Capture One, the very first thing I'm going to do is, since I complained largely about the color inside Capture One, the first thing we're going to do is fix it. The first thing you'd see is histogram, but we're not going to use histogram because we were using histogram whilst we were shooting it, so we already know that it's quite balanced. But I'm going to go into the ICC profile, and I'm going to change it from Canon EOS R generic, come down to Adobe and click on DNG file neutral. Now what that's going to do is just take out all the colors. It's going to suck it out of Capture One, and now I'm going to push and pull a couple of sliders just to move it to the mood that I think is more suitable for this image. The next thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit more contrast. So you can experiment by going through all these ones, but I'm going to use film high contrast just because I want a little bit of punch to the image. Now in the beginning, we also noticed that it was a very yellow or warm toned image, so I definitely want to take it down. So the very first thing I'm going to do is shift it. You can see the Kelvin is at 6,000. I'm going to shift it all the way down to about 5,000. Now the next thing I'm going to do is come down into the color editor, and I want to work on the reds. It's something I also mentioned earlier, that the reds were not looking exactly as I was seeing them on the day of the shoot, but inside Capture One it was looking a little bit too saturated. And now we've pulled all the saturation down so we can lift it to the point that it's going to look good. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to click on the basic, which is already selected. Maybe yours would be on advanced or skin tone or something. Just leave it on basic and click on the eyedropper right here and click on the background because that's what I want to target. Inside basic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down the hue just to shift. So by sliding this, you notice the hue is shifting, the red is shifting. Because I clicked on that, it selected this general area, and so by moving the hue slider, I'm shifting the colors to something that I think looks better. So what I'm going to do is just bring it down a bit, and now I'm going to up the saturation because it's not as saturated as it was in real life. So now I'm going to bring the saturation all the way up, somewhere about 22, and this was the red I was seeing, which I really like. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is come down into my color balance. You can work in 3-way, where it's going to show you all of the coloring circles, but I just want it to be a little bit bigger. You can even drag it out if you want and like expand it so that you can tweak it properly, but I don't mind it being down here, so I'm just going to leave it down here and start inside the shadows. So inside the shadows, I'm going to cool it down by clicking here and then just dragging it down like so, and looking for a color that pretty much matches what I'm looking for. Alright, so you notice you can even turn this around, and then that's going to select the hue. You know, as I'm taking it all the way around, it's going through like the yellows, it's putting in greens, and now blues, and some pinks and reds. But what I want to do is cool it down just a little bit, somewhere like that. This also affects the saturation, so if I drag it all the way up, it's going to make it more saturated. If I bring it down, it's going to make it less saturated, or it's even going to hide the color effect. But what I want to do is just add a little bit more saturation somewhere about here. You're wondering what this does? What this does is just darkens or brightens, basically adding more contrast. But what I want to do is just darken it down a little bit, somewhere like so. And if you maybe shift the blue a little bit upwards, just like that. Alright, so the same sliders that we controlled right here, we're going to do the same thing inside the midtones. So inside midtones, the first thing I want to do is probably move the color somewhere around here. I'm also trying to cool it down again. Instead of saturating it so much, I'm going to pull the saturation down so it's not as strong or pronounced as it was in the shadows. I'm also going to keep this one untouched, or maybe just brighten it ever so slightly. And we're going to move into highlights. Inside the highlights, again, everything was warm at the beginning, so I'm just going to cool it down. So I'm going to bring this down inside the highlights right about here. Add a little bit more color, quite a bit more, and just find somewhere around here. Looks okay. Again, I'm going to just brighten it a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go into my exposure tab, and I think that's basically it for this part. I'm going to bring the exposure down slightly, and I'm going to add some contrast because I still want a little bit of contrast in the image. So somewhere around here is fine, and it's still not as saturated as I want it to be. So I'm going to increase the saturation right here. So I'm going to keep going, keep going, keep going. It's looking good. I just want to push it and see how far I can go. So I'm still pushing, and I think about right here looks great. Yeah, I think this is a very good starting point. So again, I'm just gonna show you the before. This is where we started off inside Capture One, and after making the duplicate and bringing it to this, I think this is a very, very cool and natural looking starting point. Again, Capture One gave me this the moment I brought the raw file into Capture One. It didn't pull me off, it didn't scare me. I was able to push it by tweaking those little sliders, and I brought it to something like this. Capture One likes to add some sharpening, so let me just check that out. If there's any sharpening in there, yeah, it's added some sharpening. So I want to have control over that as well. So I'm just going to push all the sliders down. This, or maybe just add a little bit of sharpening. Yeah, something like that works fine. Okay, so I'm going to right click, edit with, click on Photoshop, click on edit variants. So it's going to create a TIFF file, and it's going to open that inside of Photoshop. Now that we're inside Photoshop, we're going to start by healing all the spots in the image and basically just cleaning up. I like to spend a lot of time when I'm cleaning up my images because that usually is where majority of the work lives. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to hit S for my clone stamp tool. And the first thing I'll do is, I'm not certain yet if I want to crop the image or not, so I'll just take the time and then fill in like these areas. Now it looks a little bit patchy in here, so what I'm going to do is just make the brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to reduce the flow just so it blends in, create a new layer. As you notice, if I'm doing anything different from what I was already doing, I'll always create a layer just in case I don't like the effects. I can either delete the layer and start afresh rather than having to undo, and sometimes it gets messy. So the next thing we're going to do is start with the healing. So I'm going to create a new layer, hit J for my healing brush tool. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and I'm going to start healing. So I'll just be taking my time healing as many of the spots as possible. But from here, we're going to work on frequency separation, dodge and burn, and maybe a little bit of coloring. So don't skip the video yet. Alright, so now that we are done with the healing, I just want to put some of these layers in groups so I stay a bit organized. So I'm gonna hit G, Command G, and I'm going to rename this to BG Paint, because that's what I did on that. And I'm gonna rename this to Healing, because I did a healing on that layer. Alright, so here's a before and after of just the healing. And when I hit Alt and click on the eye next to the background, it's going to show me where I started from and where I am. Alright, so what I want to do is just, as I was healing, I was seeing so many things I wanted to clone out. But because I spoke about doing just healing, I wanted to save that and come and do the cloning separately. So I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to name that clone. And I'm going to hit S for my clone stamp tool. And I'm just going to go to the areas that I saw that needed some cloning. And I'm just going to hit Alt and then sample and paint over those areas. The reason why I couldn't use a healing brush for this was because it was going to smudge, especially because it was at the edge of like two contrasting colors. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to run my frequency separation action. Now from the top of my head, the texture doesn't look too even, so I'm going to run two frequency separations, one to deal with the texture a little bit and then one to deal with just the colors underneath. The first one is just going to be a generic frequency separation, so and it's the same action I'm going to use, it's just the radius that I'm going to vary. So I'm going to click on an area where there's a lot of texture, like the head cheek for example. If I reduce the zoom, you'd see that's the area I sampled in, but zooming in just makes me see or pay more attention to the texture. So I am going to, because I want to reduce the texture or blend it just a little bit properly, I'm going to reduce the radius somewhere about 3.2 is fine, and I'm going to hit OK. Even though it's separated the frequencies into the texture and the color, because the radius was a little bit small, I have some of the texture present on the low layer. As you can see right now, I'm hiding the high layer, which is this one, and you can see the difference. So hiding that hides some of the texture, but you can see there's still some form of texture on her skin. So this is a little bit of a trick or a hack that you can use to smoothen skin and even out some texture issues that you have as well. So I'm going to hit B for my brush tool and click down to the mixer brush, and I'm going to increase it a little bit, and I'm going to start evening out the texture and a little bit of the tones as well. So I'm going to start painting. Remember, this isn't the frequency separation that is supposed to even out just the skin tones. This is also targeting the texture. I'm going to overdo it just a little bit. I'm just painting with a mixer brush, trying to even out tones and the texture that's present on the low layer. Alright, now I'm going to make the high layer visible, and you notice, or like, this is actually a proper frequency separation in a way. Like, this is good enough to pass as frequency separation, but that wasn't the aim of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce opacity of this one to just about maybe 50%. So here's before and after, before and after, and you can tell it's actually done quite a decent job. Right, we've been able to reduce the texture, like the harshness of the texture in a way. So this is 100%. That's a bit too much. Bringing it down to 50 is just perfect. Now I'm going to right click and convert this into a smart object, just so my next frequency separation action isn't going to be affected by the current frequency separation folder that is already existing. Okay, so the frequency separation has been merged, and so we have a smart object. So I'm going to go back into frequency separation again, and I'm going to hit play. So I'm running a new frequency separation action, and for that I'm just going to select again, probably increase it a little bit because I don't want the texture to be on the low layer as much as it was. Just going up a little bit, somewhere like this. Looks okay, and I'm gonna hit OK. So it's done. Hit B again for my brush tool, switch to mixer brush, and I'm gonna go over again, but this time I'm going to be a little bit more careful, and I'm just gonna blend the areas that need some blending, just like that. And you notice I am also not painting like from darks into lights or lights into darks so much. Try and keep, if you're painting like in a dark area, just try and keep your brush in there. If you're painting over like a light area, make sure you keep your brush in the light area. Do not transfer lightness or darkness or midtones into other areas. When you do that, you mess it up. I also forgot to make a copy of the low layer. I just remembered, but I'm gonna hit Command J and then just continue because I haven't really gone that far. I don't like to work on the first low layer that I'm given, again, just because I might make a mistake and I want to undo. And my history states if I've exhausted all of them, I can't go as far back as I need, so having the layer is way better because you can delete it and start again from the painting rather than having to run the entire action again. So alright, now I'm not aiming to do everything with frequency separation as well, because the next thing we're going to do is dodge and burn, and this is just like preparing the image for dodge and burn. So I'm not looking at like solving all the problems with frequency separation. I'm just trying to maybe make it easier for dodge and burn. Maybe I'll do a dedicated video which is just going to be like frequency separation and dodge and burn, and showing you how you can use frequency separation to assist dodge and burn. That's basically what I do. So if you want to watch like a video like that, do let me know in the comments down below, and I'll definitely work on a video like that. Same thing, I got a lot of requests after I asked if people wanted to see the editing of this image, and the feedback was impressive, and that's why I'm doing this video. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, using frequency separation to assist dodge and burn, do leave a comment. Alright, that's just about it. So here's before and after. Before, after. That's quite good. So gonna hit play. Okay, and inside we just have this black and white. It's just like a check for me. So what we're just gonna do is now hit B for the brush tool, move to my brush, bring the flow all the way down. Between 1 and 3% is what I normally use. And I'm going to look for areas that are a bit patchy and then even them out. Maybe it's not too visible, so what I'm going to do is add another curves and just increase the contrast. So by doing this, it should show me the areas that need some adjusting. So I'm going to start with dodge. So I'm going to hit B, and right under her eye, for example, needs some dodging. So right there, in case you can't see what's happening, this is before. This is before and after. You notice under the eye is looking a bit more even. So that's all I'm going to be doing, just running through areas that need some evening out. And I'm just going to be painting. So all I'm doing is dodging. Afterwards, I'm going to move on to burn. Some areas need you to zoom in a little bit and pay more attention. So I'll be zooming in, zooming out, and then doing the same thing. Again, it's also a bit more of a tedious and long and boring process. So I may forward it, just so I don't keep you guys watching me painting for so long. I think I'm actually going to create dedicated videos. So one video is just going to be on frequency separation, another is just going to be on dodge and burn, and maybe just make it like a series so you guys have like a complete guide when it comes to doing stuff like this. Because I feel some of you want to see everything I do, step by step. So creating a dedicated video is going to be a bit more helpful. So again, let me know down in the comments down below if you want to see dedicated videos on frequency separation and dodge and burn. go to filter, come down to liquify. Once it opens, what I want to do is just raise this part up a bit and hit OK. Okay, so before, after, I think this fixes the issue. So the last thing I want to attempt to do is probably just work on the eye lines a little bit. So I'm gonna hit J for my brush, for my healing brush, and I'm gonna sample and then just paint over. And all I'm going to do is just bring down the opacity because I don't want to get rid of it completely. Maybe about 48%. So before and after. Alright, the last thing I'm going to do is just add noise. So I'm going to go to noise, run the action, and I want to scale it up a bit. So I'm just gonna click on the noise layer, hit Command T, and maybe increase it to 150%. So here's before and after, and I think this looks good. So I'm gonna hit Command S to save. Alright, so that's just about it. I'm gonna close. This is where we started from. This is with all the adjustments that we made inside of Capture One. And this is when we took it into Photoshop and brought it back. So there we have it. If you enjoyed the video, do leave a like. I know it's been a very long video, but if you enjoyed it, yes, do leave a like and tell me what you think about the video. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, do leave a like, comment below, do share it with others that you think will benefit from it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye everyone.